we're going to do a scan. Now, I think we can assume that this coming January, when the new governor is sworn in, we're still going to have an economic crisis in Georgia. That difficult conditions now for months and months and months. If you were to be elected governor, would you favor any tax increases?
No.
No. All right, Mr. Porter, same question.
I know you say yes or no. I have laid it out that there are three things we've got to do. We have people who are cheating on their sales tax. We'll collect that first. Secondly, we will undo some of the tax credit and exemptions. And then third, we'll look at whatever else has to be on the table to meet the needs in education particularly. If it includes a cigarette tax, that should be on the table as well.
So definitely.
Well, no. I said it's a priority. I mean, before you say you're going to raise taxes to fix the problem, there are other things that have to be done first. We have, we'll
get back to that.
Okay.
I would not favor a tax increase. I would favor a complete reevaluation of the tax system in Georgia, with everything on the table, including cigarette taxes and property taxes and motor fuel and all the others.
So it could possibly be that the study suggests that it was necessary.
It could happen, but I don't favor it.
Okay, all right. So it sounds like nobody is in favor of increased taxes. So there's some conditions you might support them, but that would not be a first option. Okay. If we don't increase taxes, and if, again, we remain in economic crisis, so it's only one of the things that can be done. We don't find more revenues, then we have to cut expenses. We have to have a balanced budget. So, if we're going to cut expenses, are there specific programs which you would be in favor of cutting? Let me get on Mr. Boyers.
I want to argue with the question a little bit because increased revenue does not necessarily mean new tax. As DeVos said, and bear in mind, I was Deputy Commissioner of Revenue for 4 years, so I've got some familiarity with what I'm talking about. We have a chronically underfunded and understaffed audit and collection arm of the Georgia Department of Revenue. We literally leave uncollected yearly hundreds of millions of dollars of all sorts: sales, income, motor fuel, cigarette taxes, and others, which is lawfully due and owing to the state. So before I would want to talk about raising taxes, I'd want to make sure that the revenue system itself works right. Now, as far as what to cut, I think there are some shining examples of bad priority setting. Horse parks, fish ponds, the Little League campus in the governor's home county, the College Football Hall of Fame. These are all worthy objects some of the time. We don't have that kind of money right now. We don't have money to be spending on those kinds of programs and projects. Those things should never have been funded in the first place, and that money should be directed where we need it, which is primarily education.
Mr. Porter, there are programs that you would envision cutting if we don't have money.
Well, again, let me go back to the clarifying the first question. Last year, working with the Municipal Association, Georgia Cities, the ACCG, Georgia County, we looked at other states on how they collect their sales tax. We figured in Georgia there's as much as $1 billion, and not just those who have been identified that didn't pay their taxes, but those who don't even have a sales tax certificate at all. I introduced legislation called the point of sales that Alabama had adopted. It was killed in committee last year. We raised so much sand about it, we had 2 pilot studies done, Hall County and Lowndes County. Out of those studies, it showed that 25% of the businesses that had business license did not have sales tax certificates. 25%. We introduced legislation this year to share the data between the state revenue department and local government, and the revenue department has followed every step of the way. They're either that incompetent, they're either that embarrassed, or they're protecting someone, or all three. We don't know exactly what figure it is. We collect $5 billion in sales tax. If it is 20 to 25%, then that is anywhere to out of $5 billion, that's about $1 billion, or somewhere in that range. We've got to go after that first. That's the first thing that's got to be done, and you can fill a very large hole in the budget. And if you target the places that grew jobs in transportation and expanded other areas that they have blocked jobs in this state, we could get this economy going so you would not have to look at that. The other areas are exemptions that were put into place for companies that no longer work, or the investment wasn't what it said it would be, or the jobs generated weren't what it had stated it would be. No, there's no follow-up to that over the last several years, and if they haven't worked, those exemptions should be taken away. By doing that, you can come up with enough money, but you got to set your priority. What is the function? What have we got to do? We've got to make sure we fund K through 12. We got to make sure our universities are funded, and then you'll see what those needs are and find the ways to meet those priorities.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, are there programs you envision that you give this the owner of the resort?
Well, I think it's very important to first do an evaluation of all current programs. And I would respectfully submit to those agencies all around the state of Georgia. We've already cut $3 to $4 billion plus more out of our budget in the last 2 to 3 years. There are bound to be programs that are already suffering from these massive cuts. So before I would consider cutting anything, I would give those agencies an opportunity to do a study on the effectiveness of their agency to the citizenry of the state of Georgia. If they can prove that their agency is producing results, if they can prove that that specific agency is helping Georgians, then we keep it. If they cannot prove that they have solid results, then we will consider cutting that agency. But one thing that we've got to do, we've got to also find out what impact will be made on Georgians if any programs are cut. Because one program might be important to one person, and another program might be important to somebody else. So, we've already had, like I said, billions of dollars in cuts, and I don't think Georgians can stand too many more cuts. So I think an effective evaluation of each agency, and that agency producing evidence that they're worth staying in the state of Georgia and providing service to Georgians, I think that's a first start.
The Rewarding American Transportation mentioned. Supporting you have been in the legislature for the last number of years. In the last 2 years, one of the things that's been left on the table at the end of the session has been transportation policy. And I think right to the last moment that doesn't get overheard. What are your views in terms of what the state should be doing with regard to its transportation policy?
The package we have brought to the table the last 2 years, and it fell apart because of fights among the Republican leadership in Georgia, when the Speaker of the House, the Lieutenant Governor, and the Governor. Because what we put on the table was part of the package. We have reintroduced that this session again. It has 3 parts to it. 1, a regional T-splosh. To get Atlanta out of gridlock, we're going to have an offer communities the opportunity to put special purpose sales tax to fix certain specific areas in transportation. But the second part, which is the biggest part that we have insisted on from the Democratic caucus and have staked out and made it a caucus position, is we've got to dedicate the 4th penny of sales tax generated from motor fuel. Right now, you have 3 cents of the sales tax generated from motor fuel that is dedicated to roads and bridges. The 4th penny, when it was adopted in the late 80s, was supposed to go to local type paving projects. It is now put just in the general fund. If that is dedicated to any transportation purpose, it gives us 2 things. 1, a dedicated revenue stream, which for the federal government would allow us to leverage the kind of money to put passenger rail and mass transit in this state. If we did that, then we could leverage the amount of money from this administration, like North Carolina and Florida. We are behind because we're not even offering the local match. North Carolina got $500 million to put the train from Charlotte to Raleigh. Florida got $1 billion too. In Georgia, we have $87 million committed to the Lovejoy line. It actually goes to Griffin. but we got to put up 20 million. If we did that, let's just do the math. That's a $107 million jobs program that starts passenger rail in the state. The third part of the plan is it's got to go on the ballot in 2010. We cannot wait till 2012, as the current government wants to do. If we do that, we have missed this window of opportunity to leverage a tremendous amount of state dollars, and we will lose our place in the Southeast as a leader to other states.
Thank you. Mr. Cameron, what would you do about transportation policy in Georgia?
Well, having served 10.5 years with the United States Air Force and had a great opportunity to serve in transportation logistics while I was in the Air Force, and great opportunity to travel on high-speed trains overseas. I understand the importance of ensuring that Georgians have a way of getting around that's not a part of the gridlock that we're all experiencing in some of our larger metropolitan